Hello everyone and welcome to the Suzanne and Sarah YouTube channel. I'm Suzanne Moore, realtor here in beautiful sunny Bend, Oregon with Realty One Group Discovery, and I'm the founder of the Central Oregon Investor Network, which brings together investors not only from Central Oregon but from all over the country and even Canada to learn from one another, share resources, and create more passive income in our lives through real estate investments. So today's topic is learning about rural ADUs in Deschutes County. ADU stands for additional dwelling unit or accessory dwelling unit. So it's very specific to the area where we live. So if this is not where you live, but it's somewhere that you are looking to invest, you definitely want to pay attention. So first I want to give you a little bit of background into ADUs in Oregon. In 2021 and 2023, state law changed to allow rural ADUs, but each county in Oregon had the opportunity to adopt those new zoning codes based on new laws and kind of interpret them for their master growth plans. So the counties cannot grant variances to these state law requirements, but they can add additional layers of complexity, as it really turns out to be. And permits are, of course, required for ADUs. So let's talk quickly about what an ADU is. An ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. It's essentially a second dwelling that is used in connection with a primary dwelling. So you may have heard of other names like an in-law unit, a mother-in-law unit, a granny flat, lots of relatives living with you. That's one way to think about it. A secondary dwelling unit, an accessory apartment. There's lots of different names for this, but essentially it is a separate unit that someone can reside in. And ADUs in Central Oregon cities all have different allowances and requirements. Bend has their requirement. Redmond has theirs. Lapine has a different one, and Sisters also has some different requirements. Now, getting into rural ADU zoning. Essentially, to be considered rural, it has to be located in one of the following Deschutes County zones. And these are zoning names. So it's got to be in the rural residential zone. So think RR10, the multiple use agricultural zone, which is MUA 10, urban area reserve zone, UAR 10, suburban low density residential zone, which is SR 2.5, or the west side transect zone, which is WTZ. And this does not include Tumalo, Terrebonne, Sun River, or Black Butte. So that's something to keep in mind. Where can you find this zoning? You can go to the Deschutes County Information System, also lovingly known as DIAL. If you don't have a link to that, we will put a link in the show notes here so you can check that out. It's a great way to find quickly what zoning your property has. So now down to the rural ADU zoning standards. Okay, so the first thing that you need to know if you are thinking about putting an ADU on your rural Deschutes County property is there has to already be a primary dwelling. There has to already be a house on the property. And in most parts of rural Deschutes County, the minimum lot size for an ADU, which is regulated by the state, is 2 acres. However, in southern Deschutes County, so this is Sun River and south, including Lapine, the minimum lot size is 5 acres, unless there is sewer available, in which case it goes back to 2 acres. Why would they do this? Well, because the groundwater is very high in these areas south of Sun River, and generally, when you're putting an ADU on, you're also needing to expand the septic system. So most of these homes are on septic systems. This is all about wastewater management. So because the groundwater is high and you have to accommodate another couple of what they call fixtures, so sinks, toilets, showers with an additional dwelling unit, you're going to have more stuff going into that septic system. So they essentially want to spread that out over a larger parcel of land. That is why the requirements for southern Deschutes County are 5 acres instead of 2 acres. So if you're in La Pine, you have a 2-acre property and you're like, yes, I can put an ADU on it. You can't unless it already has sewer. So the 2-acre minimum is state law. The 5-acre minimum, as I said, is because of the South County groundwater protection area. So too much wastewater going into the ground. We've got to protect our drinking water. Many of these homes, majority of these homes are on wells, so we don't want to have nitrogen going into the water. And so that is why you have to spread it out over a larger tract of land. So let's talk about the actual ADU, like how big can it be? Where can it be? So the ADU is limited to be 900 square feet of usable floor area. So that does not include garages, porches, and decks. That's 900 square feet of interior area. So it can be slightly larger than that when you're building to account for outside walls. The ADU has to be within 100 feet of the primary dwelling or the other house. And there are very strict regulations on where you can measure from, like which corners. So you can potentially convert an existing structure into an ADU. Again, it will have to be within 500 feet of that primary dwelling. So could be a little tricky. We also know that in Central Oregon, we have wildfire risk. So there's some additional wildfire mitigation standards. The ADU has to be fire hardened according to some specific standards, and there are special driveway requirements that need approval from the fire district to make sure that they can get a fire truck in to both the primary dwelling and the ADU. Additionally, there are specific fire break requirements around the ADU, or you need approval from the fire district. So certainly some hoops to jump through here. So next up is utility requirements. All of these are needed prior to applying for zoning approval. First one is fire protection. You have to be within a fire protection district. Second one is wastewater. You have to obtain approval of an ADU septic site evaluation or a will serve letter from the sewer district if it's already connected to sewer. For domestic water, you have to obtain a will serve letter from the water provider if there is public or community water available. Or well users, so people that are on a well, have to contact the local water master to get approval for the ADU. Okay, now here's the juicy stuff. I know you've been waiting, like, can I rent this out? Can I make money on my ADU? That's like the majority of why many people would want an ADU, right? Maybe you want it for multi-generational living, to accommodate an in-law, a granny, somebody else in your family, maybe an adult child, who knows? So here's the deal, guys. The primary dwelling and the ADU cannot be used as short-term rentals. So let me just explain this. If you currently have a primary dwelling on this property and you are right now renting it out as a short-term rental, once you add an ADU through this permit process, neither the primary dwelling nor the ADU can ever be rented as short-term rentals. And there is a different definition of short-term rentals than there is in Bend city limits. In Bend city limits, it's any stay under 30 days, pretty cut and dry. You can do a 31 plus day stay and it's fine. Not here. No way. So what they're saying qualifies as a vacation or short-term rental is anything where the person who is occupying that place does not have another primary residence. So basically, like if you were hosting traveling nurses and they didn't have another residence, you'd be fine to have them there for an amount of time. However, if they do have another residence on file, no go. So it's a much more strict definition of short-term rental, and it's meant to encourage the use of these additional dwelling units as housing for people, not for income generation and renting them out. So that is why you waited until this minute of the presentation, because that's probably the most important thing and the biggest question that people have is, can I rent it out on Airbnb, VRBO? No, no. It's got to be for people who actually live there. So, if you've come this far and you still want an ADU on your property, you can go through the planning permit process. And there is a review fee of $730. Review time, they're saying, is less than 30 days. You have to complete a planning application for the ADU, and you can submit it to the planning department here in Deschutes County. So as I said, the planning approval should generally be done within 30 days, but then you have to get a septic installation permit. And the review process for that is about 10 days, and you apply electronically through e-permitting. And then your building permits is through the Building Safety Division. Review time is approximately 8 to 10 weeks, and you can apply electronically for that as well. But wait, there's more. You have to get a driveway access permit, and that's from the road department. You can expect that to take 2 to 3 weeks. And all of these things, the planning, septic, building, and driveway permit, all can run concurrently. So if you have questions about that, there's a lot of folks on staff at Deschutes County that can assist you with any question. And if you just wanted an overview of how much this might cost you, this is a good question, especially if you know there's going to be no ROI of renting out this place unless it's a long-term rental. That's the only potential ROI you could have on this ADU. If you were putting in a 2-bed, 1-bath, 900 square foot ADU with a 400 square foot garage that was connected to a new ATT septic system, the septic site evaluation would cost you about $1,000. The planning permit is $730. Septic installation permit is a little over $2,000. That's for the permit for your ATT system, but the actual system is way more than that. Building permits about $5,000. Driveway access permit about $81. Transportation system development charge about $2,300. So the total just permit costs $11,500. What do you think? Is it worth it? I don't know. We work with a lot of investors. Most investors would want an additional dwelling unit so that they could make money on it. The only potential option for making money on a rural ADU in Deschutes County at this point is if you rent it out long term. So that is the scoop. If you have more questions about this, I have a very detailed PowerPoint that I would be glad to send you. Hit us up with any questions, comments, and we would love to hear what you think about these rules and how they have been crafted to protect housing versus income generation for rural Deschutes County homeowners. Thank you so much for joining us today for Rural ADUs in Deschutes County. I'm Suzanne Moore, Realtor here with Realty One Group Discovery in beautiful sunny Bend, Oregon. If you liked this video, then please hit the like button and then hit the subscribe button so you never miss a video from us, and we will see you on the next one. Thank you.